Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be revisiting Grey Zone Warfare and taking another look at this game, seeing just how far it's come since release. And then I've got a bunch of new details for you guys on update 0.2, so that's the one that's going to include the brand new day-night cycle. It's of course going to include the use of night vision goggles and flashlights and all of that stuff. So just the other day, I had the pleasure of attending a little bit of a conference call over on Discord with Marek, the CEO and the co-founder of MADFINGER Games, and he was walking us through how the content plan for Grey Zone Warfare looks over the next few years, how the updates are going to come out, and what we're going to be seeing in 0.2, 0.3, and then beyond that. I'm not allowed to share with you guys anything that I actually saw at that conference, but I am allowed to talk about what was said there. So I'm going to do my best to summarize all of the information I got for you guys. It's going to be a pretty long video because there was a lot to get through here, so grab yourself a drink and let's get started. So first of all, when it comes to the cadence of content release, he said it's going to be roughly every 6 months we're going to be seeing one of these big content patches, and in the future that may mean content wipes, but I don't think that's going to be the case yet. And the way these are structured is they're going to have 1 month of doing hot fixes for the game, so making sure that anything that isn't working properly is working properly, followed by 4 months of development time, and then 1 further month to polish it and prepare it for the beta before they actually release and push that build out there for us to test. And of course, the next big update is going to be update 0.2, and that is slated to come in September or later. They didn't want to be too specific on that, but it's going to be at least in September. And the main thing that people are expecting from that is, of course, the new day-night cycle. They did show us a video of this in action. Honestly, I wish I could show it to you guys because it looks really cool. So they ran through like a little demo, sort of sped up, and showed us all the different times of day. Of course, it's not just day and night, right? You've got all of those times in between. But when they got to the night time, the starry sky just looks absolutely spectacular. And they mentioned that all of the stars in the sky, they actually have their place, just like in reality. So you may even be able to notice those. It's not just like stars that are randomly rendered by some sort of generative process. As far as I understood it, they've all got their specific place, which was really cool. The moon as well is going to have its different phases, right? So you're going to get full moons and half moons and all the rest of it. But overall, the atmosphere that it brought to the game was just incredible. We also got a little look at some night vision goggles. He did mention there's going to be like single tube goggles, that's what we saw, and then there's also going to be multi-tube ones, but they didn't show those. And with the single tube one, you know, it is kind of similar to reality. I've never used night vision goggles myself, maybe some of you guys have, but it's pretty hard to see anything outside of this tube that you're looking through, and that's certainly how it's portrayed in the game, so it's harder to see your weapon. It obviously comes with the benefits of being able to see in the darkness, but it has its drawbacks as well, and that's certainly the way that it's going to be portrayed in Grey Zone Warfare, it seems. And then of course on top of that, there are going to be flashlights added to the game and lasers. The AI will also be walking around with flashlights as well, so that is honestly looking pretty awesome. That's not the only thing coming in 0.2 though. They weren't too sure on which of these features that I'm going to mention to you guys are coming in 0.2 and which ones are coming in 0.3 or maybe even beyond that, so take this all with a grain of salt, but they're coming at some point in the future, or they're at least planned. So we've got repairing of weapons and armor. That's something that is possibly in the works. They've also said that they're going to be implementing like workbenches with crafting where you can actually like make weapons and sort of chop and change them. And then to go hand in hand with that, they're going to also implement weapon durability and dirtiness levels. So those are going to be 2 separate attributes for the weapon. First of all, it's regular durability, but then they also showed us like a bunch of screenshots of weapons that were caked in mud and were covered in various amounts of dirt and crap basically that needed to be cleaned off of there. And in the same vein, they may also be implementing some sort of a cleaning mechanic in the game where you can take care of this yourself. So every time you pick up a weapon from like a dead AI, it's going to have some level of durability and some level of cleanliness or dirtiness to it. The only way you're going to get a brand spanking new weapon is if you buy it from a vendor, or possibly from a quest reward, or if you just keep it in your backpack and never ever use it. Body dragging in comas is also planned for the game, so when somebody gets so injured that they enter a coma, you should be able to drag them into cover before you administer first aid, and you're also going to be able to loot enemy faction members when they're in coma, so you're not going to have to kill somebody outright to get their stuff. You can just put them in a coma and then go up and steal everything off of them while they're helpless on the floor. Now, I think one of the areas that's kind of lacking in Grey Zone Warfare in terms of content is the amount of weapons, right? Most of the time, people just run around with an M4 all the time, and that's just sort of what you use. There are a couple of sniper rifles in the game and stuff, but it's pretty unvaried. So they are looking to add a lot more weapons to the game. That's the good news. They're going to add more AK weapon variants, so like the guns from the Rachnik program, the AK-15, for example, those are going to be added in. Also, the CZ Bren 3rd series, they're looking to add that in the game. So basically all of these like brand new generational weapons, they're looking at adding those into the game. Really, really awesome there, and I think the game's just going to be so much fun when we actually get some more weapon and ammo variation, and it's not just like a meta where everybody uses the same stuff. They're going to continue to work on further AI improvements that will be coming in 0.2. AI still have a long way to go. They've definitely improved since I first played this game. I did actually put the game down after a while because a lot of the frustrations really got to me, and that's not like a dig at the developers. I know that it's an early access game and it's not finished, but I was basically spending more time watching Netflix on my PC than I was actually playing the game due to the fact that the helicopters were taking so long, and I couldn't even call in a helicopter, and then I would die in some sort of unjust way because the AI would spin around and headshot me from 300 meters away or something ridiculous. Honestly, it just didn't really feel that good. It was getting a little bit frustrating for me, so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna put the game down for a little while and then come back. I have come back and it feels a lot better now, but the AI still do have some work to be done on them, so it's good to hear that they are going to continue to iterate there. Also, optimization and improving stability, quality of life improvements based on like the feedback and the user experience as they've been doing over the past few months. They're going to continue with that and bring a lot of that stuff in 0.2. They also spoke quite a bit on FOBs, so they are going to be adding FOBs to the game at some point. These are going to be areas that you will be able to fight over with your faction and take control, and obviously the other factions are going to be wrestling. It's going to be like a bit of a tug of war between you and the other two factions, so every time you log on, they may have changed hands and be under the control of another enemy faction, but they will come with several perks. You'll be able to fly your heli there, so that's going to reduce the heli usage. There's also going to be a new vendor added to the game, and it's likely that this new vendor will only be accessible via these FOBs. And once we're on the subject of helicopters, they mentioned some more improvements to them. So one of the major issues with the helicopters in the game has been that MADFINGER Games have basically designed this so that you get 4 helicopters per faction. There are 16 players in a faction, and the idea is that you have 4 squads of 4 who will then go and use these helicopters. But the reality is that a lot of people are playing solo, and you've got one person using 1 helicopters. 4 helicopters, 16 people. Obviously, it's going to mean a lot of waiting around for the helis, but they recently made a change so you can see where the heli is headed to without having to talk in-game to other people, because as we all know, not everybody will answer you when you ask, hey dude, where are you headed to? So that was a really good step in the right direction, I think. But they're also going to change it now, so the helicopter will be able to enter from multiple points of the map instead of just your base. So let's say you're all the way on the other side of the map. Whenever you call a helicopter, it comes directly from the main base, and sometimes it can take like 8, 9, 10 minutes to get to you, and then you've got to fly all the way back to the base. Now it's going to be able to fly in just somewhere off map, presumably, land directly at your location, and then you just have to fly back to the base. So it sounds like it's going to cut heli flight times in half in a lot of cases. Now, it's no secret that a lot of players enjoy killing other players. They sometimes team kill people on their own faction, and so since a lot of people seem to enjoy this type of play, they're thinking about introducing a new rogue PMC of some variety. So if you do team kill too many people and you go rogue, you could potentially be kicked out of your faction, and then there may be some way that you can gain favor again. Maybe you have to pay off some bounties, maybe you've got to play some sort of a quest in the game to return back, and presumably being in this rogue PMC with other team killing players or people who are just bad uns is going to come with some sort of detriment to it, right? I can only assume that you're not going to have the same perks and luxuries, let's say, as the 3 PMCs that already exist in the game. So some more stuff that they mentioned they wanted to add is diagonal sprinting. Of course, at the moment you can only sprint forward, so presumably then you're going to be able to strafe at the same time as moving forward and sprint diagonally. That's going to be nice. Also, badges for factions are going to be coming at some point, so that should help with identifying who is from what faction. I'm not sure what these badges are going to look like, how colorful or noticeable, I suppose, they're going to be. Presumably, if you're zooming into somebody with like a high magnification scope, you'll be able to see the badge. If you've got a red dot sight or something like that, you're probably not going to be able to see it, so I'm really interested to see what those are actually going to look like. They didn't show us anything, they just basically mentioned it. On the subject of looting enemies, they've also said they are going to be adding like valuable items to the game that will be worth a lot, so stuff like watches, credit cards, rings, basically items that are designed for you to loot off of enemies solely with the purpose of going to a vendor and selling them so that you can sort of clear out a group of enemies and make some money that way. At the moment, it feels like most of the money that you make in the game is from the quests, and you know, going and looting a bunch of enemies, you can only carry what, like 1 or 2 weapons, so if you sell those off, it doesn't really net you too much money. Then they are bringing some improvements to the stash, so they're going to bring in filters and highlighting of specific things in the stash just to make it a little bit more readable and easy to handle. And then on the subject of running to retrieve your body, they basically came to the conclusion that the current gameplay loop of you dying, sometimes unjustly it feels like, amongst a group of enemies, and then you respawning and running naked with a knife to go and retrieve your body, like, it's just not that fun of an experience. They do want it to be punishing, right? There is supposed to be some time at least that you lose, and it is going to be a risk to get in there and recover your body, especially if you're playing solo. But right now, it just doesn't really feel all that fun, especially when you're having to call in a helicopter. Maybe you can't call one in for 5 minutes, and then once you finally do get one, it takes like 10 minutes to get across the map. And while all of this is going on, I'm just watching YouTube or Netflix on a second monitor, so I thoroughly agree with them there. I think once you're spending like more than half of your time doing something else because you're just waiting in the game versus, you know, actually getting to your body and recovering it, that there might be something wrong there. I'm not sure how they're going to do it without taking away the punishment, but I do agree that that whole gameplay loop needs a little look at. They also mentioned that if you head over to a dead body and you go to loot it, you're going to see a similar UI element as what you see for yourself. So when you get shot and you can see all of the bullet holes in your body and exactly where you've been injured, you will also see that for all of the AI bodies in the game, which is awesome, because then you'll be able to see that they took 10,000 rounds to be put down. No, I'm only kidding. Hopefully not, but you'll be able to see exactly where you hit them and which shot killed them and all of that. They also said they're bringing some quest improvements at some point so that you don't like continually revisit the same area. A lot of the time you'll gain access to a new area, let's say the sawmill. You get your first quest there, then you go back to base, and then you get the next quest there, which is almost in exactly the same place, but maybe like the building next door, and then you go back to almost the exact same place, complete that one, back to base, back to almost the exact same place. So I think they realized that that kind of questing gets a little bit repetitive, and they want to sort of move you around the map from quest to quest a little bit more, or task, I should say. So backtracking to AI improvements again, right now what they said about the AI is that they are incredibly basic, very rudimentary. You can't really tell anything about them, you can't tell if they're injured. That is going to be coming in a future update. All they can do essentially is they can pathfind around the map and they can see you, and that's about it. They aren't even aware of their surroundings or that there are other friendly AI, so they don't have teamwork or anything like that. You know, if there's a bunch of AI in the same area, they're all acting on an individual basis. They don't say, oh, we've got a bunch of guys, so hey, you go around there and flank around the right and I'm going to flank left. No, they all just kind of make a beeline for you and try and kill you, which is, I think, why it can be incredibly difficult. So they wanted to highlight that in order to explain that the AI are just incredibly basic. There is a lot of work to do on them yet. Now, as for the ground zero area that's in the middle of the map, that is not going to be coming until 1.0, until the full release of the game, that is to say. So it's not going to be in any of the early access. It's going to be much further down the line, and I think that makes perfect sense, right? Because you want some new content, kind of like how they did with Baldur's Gate 3. When you get into the full release of the game, there has to be a reason for people to either come back and play the game, for those of you who have already purchased it, or for new players to jump in and experience something that they haven't seen before. You can't just release the exact same game the way it was in early access for 1.0, you've got to have something new there. Also, of course, during the nighttime, the AI will change their behavior, so sometimes they'll go to sleep, sometimes they'll change who's guarding what and how many AI, sometimes they might, go and set up a camp or something like that, which I think is really cool because that means for specific tasks in the game, it might be worth your while to wait until it's the middle of the night because at this certain part of the map, all of the AI go to sleep at that time, or there's just less of them guarding. You're able to sneak in and maybe get a quest item or a task item and get out without really disturbing anybody. Now, in terms of expanding on the lore of the game and the storytelling, they did say they are going to make a pretty big effort on that front in 0.3. So they're going to be adding, more books to the game, more newspaper clippings, just little things that you can find that are going to explain the lore of the world, all of the 3 factions, basically what we've already seen, but more of it, just generally fleshing out the world, I guess. Now, after this hour-long presentation, they did give us an opportunity to ask questions about the game, and one of the things I wanted was a death marker. Now, I know that is very controversial because people kind of like the hardcore element of the game where you just have to remember exactly where you were. But this game has a lot of vegetation in it, and much of the time, whenever you're in a heated firefight, you're basically looking at where the enemies are and where you are and your weapon and your ammo counter and all those sorts of things. You're not taking note of exactly which little grass patch you're in. Then you maybe die, you have to go back and retrieve your body, and you can't really tell where the body is. You know the rough area that you were in, but you have to sort of crawl on your belly through the grass and the vegetation to try to find your dead body. Personally, for me, I would just prefer to have like a death marker. I think it makes sense. I know a lot of people are going to be against that, and even Marek himself, when I mentioned this, he said he doesn't like that idea. He doesn't want that to be in the game. Like, he understands that it's pretty frustrating to find your body in some situations, but he basically said, no, it's not going to happen. So there you go, guys. If you wanted a death marker, it sounds like it's not going to happen. Also, somebody else asked about transportation, whether they wanted to add ATVs to the game or quad bikes or something just to, outside of the helicopters to help you get around the map. And again, he sort of said he didn't really like that idea. They just want to keep the sort of slow pace of the game. They feel that's sort of the core of the game. It's not to say that it won't ever come maybe years down the line when they want to expand upon the content, but at the moment, they just kind of want to keep the pace of the game the same, and having people tearing around on ATVs or quads is obviously going to destroy that. So, pretty exciting stuff, lots to come there down the line. I'm honestly really looking forward to 0.2 now. Until then, they are going to continue to put out some of these smaller patches, which are going to continue to fix a lot of the bugs in the game. They've also made a lot of headway on the servers and the rubber banding. Like, I remember when I first played, the servers could get pretty choppy. The rubber banding was really heavy. After playing now, it's almost night and day. Like, I haven't had a single server that's been weird or laggy or rubber banding or anything like that. And like I say, after the newest changes with the helicopter travel where you can see the destination, it is a lot more intuitive to get from A to B. So if you've been like me and you've sort of had this game on the back burner, you've been keeping an eye on the news, but you haven't wanted to fully commit to playing it, or you've played enough for now, it might be a good time to jump in and give the game another little look. Guys, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, give yourselves a pat on the back. I know it was a pretty long one, but as I said, a lot of stuff to get through here. Let me know down in the comments what you think about everything that was mentioned in the video, and what sort of changes would you like to see to Grey Zone Warfare. As always, guys, thank you for watching today, and I'll see you in the next one.